Hey, juniors. Hope everybody's doing okay today. I know it's Monday, not the best of days, but we'll be all right. Um, Hopefully, you're not getting too overwhelmed by your classwork yet. Um, I had a short meeting. We were going to do a junior class meeting, but I think Andrew, Ding, and Aaron showed up, and so I talked to them about my plan for Junior Great Book Seminar. Yes, we are still going to do some reading. So you guys can be prepared for that. But my plan is to make it light. I want to give you guys some SparkNote versions of Dante's Inferno so that we can continue to get the message and continue to get the idea without so much of the old poetic language and the difficult reading. Since it's going to be a lot harder for me to explain a few things. But I thought that first I would just give a simple recap, and I'll give you guys some directions of what I want you to do for the assignment today at the end. But just a recap for where we've been in Dante's Inferno thus far. And so we started out with Daunte saying, first and foremost, I'm writing this because I want people to get something out of it, right? An experience of hell is something that should elicit our action, at least to avoid such a place of suffering. And ultimately, the suffering is the absence of God and the continual sin. He shows that sin itself is an immense suffering for human beings. And then we witness at the very beginning of the book, before he even enters into the cavern of hell, that Daunte is afraid. He's got a lot of fear, and so he tries to flee the entrance of hell, and he's stopped by a wolf, a great big beast who will not let him pass. And so he really has no choice but to go down into hell. And then when he encounters Virgil, he's encouraged by two things to kind of take on this journey. One of those things is that he won't be doing it alone. He's got a guide. So this is essential, for any journey. For any journey that we face, it's going to be daunting if we're alone. But the journey through this life and Dante's own journey through the visions of hell is made possible because he's with somebody. He's got companionship. And then also that the reason he has somebody there is because of the love of his late wife, his wife who had died and whom he places in heaven. I would hope that in the future you would place your spouse in heaven and not the other place. So he's placed his wife in heaven, but in her love, she has sent him a guide. And so it's the love as well that spurs him on for this journey. And as he walks up to the doorway is a warning that all who enter here are here for eternity. And that is perhaps the most daunting truth about hell, is that it's a place of God's justice, but it's also eternal. And we can't even fathom eternity. I mean, it's hard for us to wait for things in this life, and there's a set amount of time that we have to wait. But heaven or hell, they're both for eternity. It's an eternal dwelling place. And so that's what Daunte reads on the doorpost of hell. And so he enters, and there's a place of limbo, which is not really suffering, but they're not really happy. They're just there. And the souls in the state of limbo are virtuous pagans, people who were good people, but just didn't believe in God. And then we encounter some of the first circles of hell. We have lust and gluttony. And in the circle of lust, they have to spend eternity with their partner, reminiscing all of the things that brought tragedy in their lives, and the fact that they are no longer happy here in hell. They're together, but they're not happy, which is what their actions have warranted. And then the gluttonous are in dung. They're spending eternity in crap. So that's just kind of a reason to that's kind of a reason to watch what you eat, right? Don't eat crap, and don't eat too much crap, because you might live the rest of your life in poop, and that's terrible. Um, the Inferno in many ways is kind of ironic. It's quite literally a comedy, right? In some of those ways, but really it's a comedy because it ends with Paradiso, it ends with paradise, and it doesn't. The journey doesn't end in hell. But it is kind of funny too. Um, and so these circles of hell are outside of Satan's city because the sins are less rational. Any animal could commit these kinds of sins. And so whenever we enter Satan's city, Daunte enters into the city by the will of God, right? It is God who sends a messenger to open the doors, basically forcibly open the doors, because it is God's will that Daunte continues his journey into the city of Dis, which is Satan's city. And the first people he encounters are heretics. So obviously this is a rational sin. Only a human could commit the sin of heresy, which is essentially teaching false things. It can be heresy about the church. It can be heresy about life as well. So he encounters the heretics, and then he starts to encounter the violent. And first you have the violent against self, first you have the violent against one another, who are just fighting for eternity. They're fighting each other. They're never happy. They're never satisfied. Neither one is ever humble enough to concede to the other. They just fight for eternity, which sounds horrible. I don't even like fighting with people in this life for a short amount of time, and then I always regret it. But to just constantly be fighting for eternity is miserable. And then there's the violence against self, who no longer deserve a body because they didn't take care of their bodies in this life. And so they live as immovable trees, but they still have feelings, and they can still be harmed and hurt. And so they're basically just frozen in their grief for eternity. And then finally, you have the violent against God, who are constantly trying to snuff out the flames of God's justice. They have to acknowledge that God is there, acknowledging also that they've fought against him all of their life. And so to their agony, they continue to fight against God's justice and his presence. And so I think that all of these circles of hell, and I know that I missed greed, but that's okay. All of these circles of hell are supposed to teach us something. They're supposed to give us a lesson. And so I hope that you guys will continue to kind of contemplate what we learn about our actions in this life from what we've read thus far and what we will read coming up. The sins are going to become more and more rational. They're going to become more and more deliberate, so that it's very clear as you get near to the pit of hell that these people chose this place, right? It was a totally free choice, and they chose to disown God, and they chose to reject him, and they chose themselves, and so that becomes their misery for eternity. So I want to go ahead and explain to you guys at the end of this video what it is I want you to do. What I want you to do is just write me a paragraph, and I want it to be a good, thoughtful paragraph, right? Don't spend 20 minutes on it, but I want a good, thoughtful paragraph about what's been the most meaningful part of the book for you so far. What struck you the most? And I'll just leave it at that. As we continue to move forward with great books, you can expect a short kind of summarized version of each of the chapters, and I'll have you guys respond to the chapter and to one another, but that will come as it comes. For now, I just want you to respond with what's been the most meaningful part of the book so far. Good luck on the rest of your classes, and I'll be seeing you again for ethics.